Me and my husband are both working professionals with long hours and have 2 kids, 4 and 2. My sister-in-law is child-free and a housekeeper. My cousin's wife, Chloe, is a stay-at-home mom with 1 child, 3. During my pregnancy, I was determined to return to work, so I approached both my sister-in-law and Chloe to babysit my kids and offered to pay them for it. My sister-in-law refused, saying they were child-free. I thought I would have to find a daycare, but luckily Chloe agreed but refused pay. So instead, every year I fund a 2-week-long vacation for my cousin and Chloe, and now their child. My brother and sister-in-law did not know about these vacations being funded by me. A few days ago, I got a call from sister-in-law, fuming and angry, crying that I favored my cousin's family over my brother's. She had been talking to Chloe on the phone, and when she had accidentally mentioned their upcoming trip to Greece with an all-inclusive resort, my cousin had been having some financial troubles. Nothing major, but just not enough to afford a trip right now, and everyone in the family knew this. On being questioned by sister-in-law, she told her that we funded it, and all the other vacations as well. I tried explaining to her that the trip was a thanks for Chloe's help, which led to sister-in-law going ballistic about me discriminating against child-free people. I tried to explain, but she kept cutting me off, so I hung up on her. Later, my brother called me. I understood he was a bit hurt from his tone, but asked my side of the story. I told him. He said he understood, but maybe I should apologize to sister-in-law because her mother always pressured her to have children, and that a woman's life is unfulfilled without having children, which is complete BS. I sympathized with her, so I called her up to apologize for not telling brother and her about funding a vacation for my cousin's family. She said she'll accept the apology if I gift her and brother a 6-month-long world cruise once the virus pandemic ends fully to make up for all the vacations I didn't fund for them. I was completely taken aback and said I would think about it. I hung up and looked up the prices, and the cheapest ticket was about $50,000 per person. I cannot afford that now or in the foreseeable future, so I texted her that the best I could do was to send them on a trip to Greece after my cousin comes back from his. Well, she blew up, spammed me with messages calling me a a-hole, and again accused me of discriminating. What I was surprised by was my mother calling me and telling me I'm being insensitive to my sister-in-law, and she's going through a tough phase standing up to her mother. I told her I can't afford a cruise like that, and she said I should cancel my cousin's trip for this year and the next few years and save up for the cruise. I refused, and she called me an a-hole. I truly can't afford that cruise, and these trips are the repayment for Chloe, who takes care of 3 kids, 5 days a week. I want to know if I was the a-hole for not funding trips for my brother and sister-in-law as well, which has led to the current situation. Not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law is delusional. You're not doling out trips as gifts. You're paying for daycare. Daycare is hard work. Daycare is expensive. If your sister-in-law wants to start watching your kids to earn her trip, tell her she has more than a few years to catch up on. Edited to add, for the love of all that's holy, do not give your sister-in-law a dime toward a holiday she did nothing to earn. Not the a-hole. Do not fund any trip for your entitled as duck sister-in-law. Giving a trip as a thank you for watching your kid is not discrimination against her for being child-free. Do not offer paying for vacations for this chick. 1. You owe her nothing. 2. You didn't discriminate against her. Being child-free is the excuse she made for not helping. 3. You are only funding your cousin because it is payment for her assistance. 4. Sister-in-law is being manipulative and trying to be the victim in a situation that has nothing to do with her. 5. Tell her and anyone else who doesn't agree that you owe her nothing and you will not pay for any of these vacations. The nerve. I'm angry on your behalf. Not the a-hole. Update. So I read all the comments, and one thing I'm most certain about is sister-in-law ain't getting a vacation funded anytime soon. I discussed the matter at hand with my husband, and he made me understand that paying for my sister-in-law and brother's vacation would undermine Chloe's help, and I totally agree. Also, we both called up Chloe and told her if she would accept payment from now on. She refused at first, but as one of the comments said, if I pay her, she'll be able to fund her own vacation. After a lot of insistence from both my husband and I, she finally agreed. I texted my mother saying I couldn't and wouldn't fund a trip for sister-in-law. She tried to argue, but I told her to buy the tickets out of her retirement fund if she cared about sister-in-law's personal issues so much. That pretty much shut her up. I did call my brother a few times, but he didn't pick up, and my sister-in-law spammed my inbox until the very moment I blocked her. I still feel my brother is being influenced by sister-in-law, but hopefully he'll call me back and we could sort things out. When my wife and I were still married, we got plans made up with an architect to build our dream house for us and our 2 kids on this nice piece of land I owned. but during the construction, our relationship deteriorated very quickly. Within the year, we got divorced, and I got to keep the unfinished house. My plan was to try and sell the house as is, because I was drained and didn't have the money or energy to deal with construction anymore. So the house basically just sat there unfinished for 3 years, because no one wanted to buy an unfinished house. I'm now engaged and my fiancée is pregnant, so we had to move up our plans to get settled in a house. Unfortunately, after looking in our area, we couldn't find anything that would meet our needs. I brought up the unfinished house I had. It had more than enough room for all of us, as it had 4 bedrooms and 2 offices. I did make sure to explain to my fiancée that my ex was the one that had done most of the planning for it with the architect, in case that made her uncomfortable. She didn't mind at all though, because it was way better than the other options we had. So I got in contact with a new contractor, who went out and inspected the house, and he said it was solid to continue to work on. A lot had already been done, so we got quoted with 2 months for them to finish, which would give us plenty of time to get settled in before the baby arrives. There were a few setbacks, but the house got finished a few weeks later than expected. It's been a couple weeks since then, and we have it all set up just right. The nursery is perfect for our baby, and my 2 older kids love their new rooms. Before, I only had a 2-bedroom apartment, so they had to share a bedroom. They have to at their mom's too, but their bedroom is much bigger there. The one at my old apartment was pretty cramped, so they didn't like staying over at my place much. Now that they've got bigger rooms all to themselves, they're really happy there. The problem is, they've asked if they can stay here the majority of the time now instead of their moms. Me and my fiancé don't have a problem with this, but my ex does. We were discussing it when she broke down and started yelling, crying, saying I was insensitive to move in there in the first place because it was supposed to be a home for our family, and now we're going to all be living there as a family with someone else when she did everything to make it perfect. She said it's like I'm basically taking her kids away and replacing her as their mom. I wouldn't say we're replacing her, but the kids do like my fiancé a lot, so I think it's causing some jealousy issues. I think that since they're teenagers now, I feel like they should have more privacy and some say in where they live. Not the a-hole. I get why your ex is upset. She designed the house and probably feels very emotionally attached to it. And now you're living in it with the new woman, and even her kids don't want to leave. But you didn't do anything wrong either. This was the best option for your new family, who you need to consider first and foremost. I would talk to the kids. Yes, extra space is nice, but they're also old enough to understand why they're not wanting to stay with their mom would be hurtful. Not the a-hole. Your plans changed with your ex. No one's at fault for that. You still own the land, still own the house you're building. She has a house, you have a house. She might be feeling deserted though. First the divorce, and now the kids want to leave her too. That would be pretty depressing. Oof! I think honestly, not the a-hole. But man, I feel for your ex. You know that old country song that goes, "That's my house and that's my wife. Who's that man living my life?" Well, that's pretty much your ex-wife's situation now. To see you all happily living in the house she designed would be a gut punch, no matter how mature you are. At the same time, there were obvious practical reasons for you to do what you did. Encourage your kids to spend equal time at your ex's house. Edit. Going to have a talk with everyone and try to convince them all to a 50-50 split. I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. Me, 47 male. Ellie, 45 female. Jamie, 41 male. And Jane, 38 female. Jane is married to Rick, 39 male, and they have 2 children together. Alice, 21 female, and Daniel, 18 male. Growing up, it was pretty obvious that Daniel was Rick's favorite child. So much so that even Alice could see it. Rick spent more time with Daniel than her. She's complained about it to her mom, but she either just dismissed her concerns and said she was overthinking it, or called her ungrateful, because some people don't even have fathers. We've talked to my sister over and over about this, but she just thinks we're trying to undermine her because we're older. She is closest to my younger brother, Jamie. To put it simply, they always did the things that Alice wishes Rick would do with her. She even admitted to me once in secret that she sees Jamie as more of a father than Rick. Recently, my niece announced that she was getting engaged to her boyfriend of 3 years. Everyone was happy for her, obviously, but then came the comment that set everything ablaze. My sister said, "My favorite part will be when your father walks you down the aisle. It'll be beautiful." Alice stared at her, before rolling her eyes and saying, "Actually, I'd prefer it if Uncle Jamie walked me down the aisle." My sister looked horrified, but Rick shot up and lost his crap. He demanded to know the meaning behind her decision, and Alice replied that she just would prefer it if her favorite uncle walked her down the aisle. Rick shouted that he's her father, and that honor should go to him. Alice said bitterly that her Uncle Jamie is more of a father than he is, and that he can have a special role at his golden child's wedding. He started crying, threw himself at her feet, and begged her to let him walk her down, but she refused. The worst part is that he tried to throw Daniel under the bus, saying that because he didn't object to being treated like the golden child, it's his fault too. I could tell Daniel looked hurt. She kicked him out right then and there, along with Jane, who made no attempt to stop him. Jane called me and asked if I could either convince Alice to let her father walk her down, or convince Jamie not to accept the role. Apparently, she called Jamie and asked him to resign, but he refused, saying that Rick brought this on himself. Jane says that Jamie respects me the most, so he'll listen if I talk to him. I told her to duck off, and I hung up. Ellie says I should have made more effort to convince Alice, because this could have been a chance to bond with her father. My mom thinks that Jamie is being unfair to Rick, whilst everyone else is backing us. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Rick ignored his daughter and treated his son like the golden child, and is now upset he can't play father of the bride. Alice isn't a prop to make Rick look like father of the year, and she is perfectly within her right to choose her uncle for this honor. Your sister and brother-in-law are just upset that everyone will be judging them over this. You're right to stay out of this. It's going to get a lot worse before the wedding. Not the a-hole. A chance to bond with her father. Wasn't that all the years of her life? Nope. He couldn't show up then. He doesn't get to show up now. It takes more than a sperm donation to be a father figure. Not the a-hole. Jane and Rick had 21 years of making this happen. Maybe an hour's worth of time together, rehearsal and the 1 minute of walking down the aisle, isn't going to repair the damage from years of Rick not spending time with Alice. Rick and Jane are just mad that they're finally being held accountable, and publicly so, for their crap parenting. Stand by your niece and your brother. I, 32 female, have a friend, Ashley, 33 female, who is getting married the first week of November. We've been friends since we were kids, and I'm also a bridesmaid in her wedding. We've been talking about wedding stuff for the past year, as I recently married in April, so it's been fun doing wedding stuff together, until Ashley dropped some bad news. The person responsible for the cake for her wedding is moving, and is no longer able to do it. She was refunded her money, but now out of a cake. I am a cake decorator myself. I was a teacher, and this is my first year as a school administrator, but I've held jobs in high-end bakeries and make cakes for fun out of my house. I don't have a cake business as I don't want one. Ashley asked me if I can do her wedding cake. I at first declined, as I never do cakes for large events, but with the date coming up and her not being able to find anyone, I caved. Ashley wants a 4-tiered cake with 4 different flavors and 100 cupcakes, 25 of each flavor. The decorations will require me to order specialty molds, and I'll have to hand paint some gold onto the cake as well. Total cost came out to $825, $100 more than the previous baker. Ashley was upset and said I was overcharging, but I showed her the breakdown. I used the same pricing system as one of the bakeries I worked at, and it wasn't even the most expensive one. I told her I would do it for the other quote if she was strapped for money, but Ashley then asked me to do it for only $150. When I asked why, Ashley said since she's my friend, she should get a good deal, and she could use the money to upgrade the hotel for their honeymoon, to think of it as my wedding gift to her. I told her she was getting a good deal as I was willing to go to the price point of the previous baker. But she mentioned that I did my sister's cake for free several years ago and do free birthday and anniversary cakes for my immediate family all the time. I told her family and friends are not the same. Plus, I had more time to do my sister's cake as I had less responsibilities as a teacher back then compared to what I do now. She told me I needed a friend discount. So I said the discount is you get 0% off 100% of the time. And if you keep bothering me, I'll even add tax. Basically, Ashley didn't like that response and has told the rest of the bridal party what I said. So I'm getting pressure from 9 additional women to drop the price, though some say to half it instead of dropping it to $150. My parents paid for my wedding, so their main argument is I don't need the money nearly as much as Ashley does, which they only know because they saw me using my parents' credit card several times when out wedding shopping. Only her maid of honor, her sister, thinks Ashley is being unreasonable. My husband thinks I should drop out of the wedding and not give her anything, but he also doesn't like Ashley or her fiancé. He thinks she's a spoiled brat. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I've only paid for my dress for her wedding. I'm also doing my own hair and makeup myself, but the only money I've spent so far for her wedding on my end is for my dress and shoes. Not the a-hole. I'm on team husband. Not the a-hole. If they all want you to drop the price, they can all throw in $100. A wedding cake and 100 cupcakes for a wedding isn't the same as Aunt Betty's 58th birthday. That's pressure times 10. Not the a-hole. And I agree with your husband. You should give Ashley a $700 gift on top of what you probably already spent? No. Her entitlement is not your problem. Plus, the harassment is unacceptable. And the longer she waits, the less chance she's going to get her over-the-top cake, and more likely she'll wind up with a sheet cake from Walmart.